Welcome to episode 2 of Steady Lads. As everybody can see, with the 500 subscribers, we were now able to afford a proper intro video. The quality of production has gone up massively. So good to have you with us, and we're hoping to make this a weekly occurrence. I'm Jordy. I'm the CEO of Selene Capital. We have, the usual crew. We have Taiki, the humble farmer. We have Justin Brand, one of the founders of Astaria. And we have Thiki, who's a junior analyst / coffee intern at Scimitar Capital, which is one of the most notorious crypto funds around. And, let's start off this week with the hot topic from last week, which is Worldcoin. And Justin, last week we were discussing how none of us were willing to go get our eyeball scanned, but you were. So we're kind of curious to hear the story. Like, how did that go?
Yes, you can see here I was trying to respect everyone's privacy, but snuck a photo. So you can see the orb there on the table. And actually to the right, you can't really see them, but there was a family there. And that family was asking if they scanned in the US, could they still get their coins eventually? And I found the answer to this. Took a while, but you can scan anywhere. But if you're based in the US or using a VPN, you can't claim. So if I were to go to, let's say, Canada or the UK, I could claim. But you can't do it from the US. And if you turn a VPN on, they can track you. And alongside some of the developers at Astaria, they were trying to see if they could help me connect to their private networks outside of the US and go around that. And it still didn't work. So they've got great detection. But if you're in the States,
wow,
you can't claim. Yeah, but you can scan. So, and it's really cool. So you go there, you have the World app downloaded on your phone. You scan the QR code on the orb, and then immediately it starts sort of scanning your face. It scans the whole face and then the eyes, I believe. And the whole process takes about 30 seconds. Very quick. The orb chimes saying your ID is unique and verified, and then you're good to go. Very simple. And hopefully someday I'll be able to claim these coins and eventually sell them.
That's quite interesting that they managed to detect that. I mean, I know from the poker days that Poker Stars and some of these websites did have a way that they could tell that you were using a VPN and they actually from the United States. And I thought that in DeFi, people just they have the technology, but they don't use it because they just want to turn a blind eye and be able to tell the regulators that, hey, we checked the IP address. But in this case, wow.
Well, we went above and beyond. So I don't know if folks listening are familiar with Wireshark or Wi-Fi Man, but I actually tunneled into someone. We have someone based in Canada. I tunneled into their network, and it still detected that I was using it. So I wasn't using ExpressVPN or NordVPN. I went above and beyond trying to get these coins, and no luck. I hold 0 Worldcoin.
So for that $64 of Worldcoin, I hope you haven't just admitted to breaking any federal laws, and it's not just going to be the 3 of us next week, hopefully. Cool. Yeah. Okay, so you get the app. You don't have the coins yet, and we'll wait for your next trip to Europe to see when you can claim the coins.
Well, I think it's just 1 coin now. I don't think I'm eligible for the full $50. I think it's just a single Worldcoin coin. So I don't know if I'll be making a flight just for this, but we'll see.
Well, so they actually extended the deadline for the Genesis airdrop. It used to end on the 31st for the first, but they extended it to the 7th. I'm guessing because they didn't get enough signups.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had an amazing Twitter Spaces a few days ago, going through all the scenarios with Worldcoin, and my thread about Worldcoin and my thought about it blowing up potentially, it made a lot of people bullish because bubbles usually get a lot bigger before they burst, and it's entirely possible. I think the downside though is some of these stories we're seeing potentially where in Africa or in other third world countries you can have hunters going around and collecting $1 per eyeball and then selling them in the black market. So I'm still kind of worried about these dystopian scenarios, but we'll see how it plays out, and I'm sure it'll come up. But we have other drama in the meantime. It's been one of the heaviest weeks of drama. I think kind of started with this the curve wars, which is not the curve wars that we expected. It's a different kind of curve wars, and I think a lot of you guys have managed to do quite a good deep dive. Taiki, I know you were looking at the list of the amazing counterparts that have bought Curve at 40 cents. What do you think about this list?
It definitely doesn't inspire that much confidence. I mean, of course, I don't want to generalize all these people, but for example, I feel like in an ideal scenario, Mitch would have found OTC buyers of like VCs or like other DeFi founders who have, I guess, like aligned interests. I feel like most of these people are just profit driven, and I feel like there's also PvP games to be played here, where like if you're, for example, MachiBigBrother, and you know that this news is going to be announced, they can like just lever long curve on perps, and then like when the short squeeze happens, cover it, short it on perps, and like just hedge his entire exposure. I think he has like some protection because he locked his entire curve stack for like 6 months or something. But I would assume that he made a bunch of money already by like using other centralized exchanges and whatnot. It kind of seems like he had like Michael had like trouble finding buyers, and he was like resorted to like selling it to like these less than stellar characters. And then we can talk about, okay, like these lockups aren't even contractually obligated, right? Like if one person sells, then it can lead to a cascade of, well, if he's selling, I'm going to sell. And then that can lead to a whole nother shenanigan.
Absolutely. I mean, the list of characters is so questionable that Wintermute, which, they try not to say who they're dealing with or not dealing with. I don't know if you guys saw this tweet by Evgeny. He's so disgusted by the list of people that he wanted to clarify that he and his firm are not a counterparty. He wanted to make sure everybody's aware. And I think, I saw you posted this. How do you expect this game theory to play out? Or is everybody going to just follow the rules at this point?
Yeah, I think, it's definitely tough to tell. I mean, as soon as one of them defects and brings the price down, it does, incentivize other people to sell too, just to lock in their profits.
Yeah, and you've said that he's paid the iron price. And is it the iron price that he's just sold some tokens at 40 cents? Is that enough of an iron price? I would think the iron price is getting liquidated on something. Like, is that enough of pain for him?
Yeah, the ultimate iron price is definitely selling a house or both houses for it.
And that marks the end of the DeFi bear market. Curve founder liquidates his house.
One of the interesting things we had in the last bull market was this like fractionalization, where they were taking a picture of Shiba Inu and making 1 million pieces out of it, and fractionalizing this. And I think a much better usage would be if we can take over the house of Michael and fractionalize that maybe.
There's so few on-chain users that each on-chain user, like anyone that's operating on-chain, could probably get their own bedroom across these two houses.
But yeah, the curve wars have been keeping us very entertained. Every day there's like a new development. Now like Ave's potentially looking to buy some curve and help kind of keep things afloat. So we'll see how that plays out. But one of the more interesting things that happened was definitely Base. And even though we thought that Base was going to potentially be a very safe and regulated chain, we've seen the first rug pull. It's a proper Yao kind of rug pull. We have a Steady Lads as well here by Will Clemente. So since we are the Steady Lads, I mean, what do we make of this? Is this Alameda? What do you think, Vicky?
I think there has been done, like we were talking about some research earlier, where a lot of the addresses that deployed had a pretty rich on-chain history, like that matched the signature of they used FTX deposit addresses. They're voting on proposals that were like really associated with Alameda and FTX. So very possible it was a rogue Alameda employee or something like that.
Yeah, I saw some people were looking at the grammatical. They do this recently now. Whenever you have some anon talking, they'll try to pull up tweets and look at historical things. And I don't know if you guys saw this correct, but apparently SBF, or the Twitter of SBF, whoever was managing it, has a proclivity to respond with the single word correct. And this is kind of potentially a tell that it's either SBF, which I don't think it is SBF, because that would be a bit too brazen to do that from his basement, but potentially somebody that was running the Twitter of SBF during all these times. And I'll share an interesting anecdote from 5 years ago. So I interview a lot of traders, and we had a trader that was very smart, seemed really good. He made huge claims, to us about his results, and I asked for a reference. I did a reference check. So I called the first reference he gave me, and it was some guy that he was working with, and the guy was like, yeah, I kind of know him, but I actually haven't worked that closely with him. I can't answer a lot of these questions that you're asking me. So I go back to the candidate and I say, hey, like, do you have any other reference? Like, this guy, he didn't really have the ability to give a proper reference. So he says, yeah, call this number, call this guy here. So I call, and immediately I had a suspicion that it was the same individual, the same candidate, just putting on like a really thick accent. So he had this like thick accent and was like responding in a different voice, but I had a suspicion it was him. So I just play dumb and I go through the process. You know, I'm asking him like, oh, have you worked with Mr. X? It's like, yes, he's extremely good. And I kind of get him a little bit more interested, ask a few more questions. And he loses composure for a second and he responds like, correct. And I had this immediate flashback, remembering with the actual candidate had also said correct. So for me, like, this is proof. Like, I believe this proof. I don't know if anybody else is convinced, but for me, it's such a rare tick to use this terminology. I don't know. What are the chances? What do you think, Justin? What's the chance that this is Alameda?
I don't know if we can just base it off the correct tweet. I don't, you know, like this address that deployed the bald token also was the largest holder of CBETH at one point, I think. And to me, to your point, I think it's too brazen to assume it's someone from Alameda/FTX. But it is a page from their playbook, right? Like, who else knows how to pump a token as like Alameda can? So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I also, like, frankly, like, I don't know if the deployer did anything wrong here, right? Like, they just pulled the liquidity that they put in. There's no commitment to. They didn't lock the liquidity. I mean, if they're not exploiting anything, they didn't lock the liquidity. The token is notably useless. Anyone that's buying it knows it's a potential rug and it's a meme coin. Like, why is it bad? I mean, I wouldn't do it. It's unethical, but it's not, in my opinion, illegal or uncommon. This is like to be expected. I mean, if you're buying that token, you've got to imagine that this is like 50% of the outcomes results in the developer just pulling the liquidity, especially when it's not locked. I mean, even the hamsters token, they locked the liquidity, and that was, you know, that's different. So
wow. Okay, we have a bald apologist here. Like, Tage, do you agree? Like, is this just fair game? Like, should we all just try to rug pull some users?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely unethical, right? And
totally.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think we all knew how this was going to end. Like, this deployer was just kept adding liquidity, and I think at the peak they had like $30 million worth of liquidity at like $100 million market cap. And then, you know, of course, like, as soon as something pumps, people look for narratives like, oh my god, like this is Brian Armstrong, or this is a Coinbase employee who's trying to bring liquidity on chain. And even after the guy rug pulled, I think on the Twitter account he was like, oh, like, what are you guys talking about? Like, I never saw the token. Like, I just added liquidity and pulled out. And I think there was like actually like an exploit for lead swap, right? Like a day later. So I guess technically he also saved this liquidity from like the lead swap exploit. So I don't know, maybe he's like a GigaBrain employee, GigaBrain former Alameda employee, or just like some serial rugger that like, who knows what's gonna happen to him? Like,
I mean, he has like it's not a small fish, right? Like, this is a whale. Like, Thicky, I don't know if you dug in, but it looks like this is a rich guy. He's got millions of on ETH and stablecoins.
Yeah. Usually what they do is like they lock up liquidity for like a year. So like there is like at least a floor of liquidity. And I guess like the ethicality of adding and removing liquidity on top of that as a team member is like, I don't think it's like in a vacuum bad. The issue was like what he did was he added 12.5 million or maybe 15 million of liquidity. So like it's half ETH, half token. So it was a total of around 25 to 30 million on the way up. And then he completely stopped. And then the issue was like towards the end, he started buying even more. So he bought 1,000 ETH. He basically doubled the price at the end. And then while he was buying, he pulled all the liquidity out. So I think that's the part where it was like misleading, because like he was buying to pick up the price to get other people to come in, and then he pulled liquidity at the last second. So I guess that's like the unethical part, not more so like the adding and removing in itself.
Yeah, and I think the question, some people have been saying is Base dead on arrival because, it was supposed to be the safe playground and they put their name on it, regulated company, public company, and we've seen a rug pull and we've also seen a hack. And this is, in the first week of existence. So one of the questions that has been going through my head like every day for the last weeks is when we talk about DeFi and decentralized finance, like where's the line between just letting things play out, rule of the jungle, dog eat dog, whatever, whoever's the biggest scammer kind of wins out, versus having some level of centralization that at least, if you do something wrong, we're just going to freeze your coins. We're going to freeze your USDT and we're going to get it back. And there's some kind of policing going on. Where do you guys fall on the spectrum of, do we just let it, code is law? Or Justin, what do you think?
So I don't think code is law. I used to, but I don't anymore. And I don't think policing is really sustainable. Like we saw BSC try to do that at the start. But what happens is all of these bridges, like anyone can deploy a third-party bridge, right? So within moments, I can exploit and then bridge out. And so like you can't really do anything about that, right? You're rugging. If you reverse transactions, you end up rugging the people that were supplying liquidity to that bridge. And so to me, I don't think they should set that precedent. I think the risks are expected. I mean, Coinbase had to know what they were doing when they launched it at layer 2. Unfortunately, this is the world we live in where developers, for better or worse, can deploy whatever they want, no matter how nefarious. Like I'm sure someone's going to fork Tornado Cash and deploy it on Base eventually, and there's nothing Coinbase can do to stop that. Maybe they will. But to me, I don't think it's really sustainable to start policing because once you open that can of worms, it's really hard to put it back in the box because what's okay, what's not okay, where do you draw the line, what dollar value is acceptable to let get stolen, what isn't. So hopefully they don't open that can of worms. I don't really see them doing it because it seems like a legal nightmare and they'll get requests from everyone saying, my funds were stolen, I lost my keys, can you help me out? And I just don't see it being something they can do.
Okay, so you fall in the kind of, you have this lawful and anarchy. You have this 3x3 pictures, and you sound like you kind of fall in the middle of that. You're quite neutral.
I think
gone
so.
From the. How about you, Thicky? Where do you fall on this?
I think they should, police the shit out of
it. Lawful, very lawful.
Very lawful. Yeah, I mean, I think that we've experimented a lot with the sort of permissionless, blockchain. I think we should just experiment with like a half permission one. I think if you as Justin mentioned, it is hard to police like the bridges, especially in real time. But like if you just force everyone to KYC before you enter and exit, then they can just keep it inside. And like, let's say someone commits a crime, and I mean, in 6 months they can come prosecute us. So I guess giving that sort of, as long as they know who's doing it, then I don't know. It's interesting to see because I think like the crime aspect of DeFi is definitely like an existential risk, at least to like regulation and governments. So it's cool to see if this is a solution that sort of can coexist in that framework.
Yeah, I mean, the way I feel about it is like over time, we can let code talk more and more because the code will get good enough. We'll have gone through all the hacks possible. We'll have figured out solidity and we won't have as many hacks and we can just let the code talk. But in the meantime, just so we keep things together and don't keep getting hacked by North Korea, we maybe want a little bit of centralization.
If Coinbase succeeds and they launch, this base chain is like the safe chain where you have all the apps you want, Aave's there, Uni's there, whatever you want is there. But you have the security that if you, let's say you lose your keys or you are in a DeFi protocol that gets exploited, Coinbase comes in and saves you. Does that mean like all of the ethical, legal, willing to KYC users all migrate there and that's a huge selling point? And then it's like, who's taking the risk of doing these activities on mainnet, right? When you can just have the assurances of Coinbase backing you up on their chain. I mean, is that a huge value prop? I mean, to me, it seems like it, right? I hold stake ETH. It would be nice to hold it on the base chain if they're going to insure me, basically, and willing to help me out if anything happens.
Or is there a world where we just have different countries' regulations being more applicable to one L2 or another L2, and this is the American one, this is Chinese one, this is like, we kind of have the fiat governments manage to claw their way back into the ETH ecosystem. I don't know, Taikin.
Wow,
and how do you see it, Taikin? Do you think is Base dead on arrival now with all this bad press?
No, I don't really think so. Like, I think when Arbitrum first launched, there was like that farm, like Arbinian token with like the Nyan cat, the rainbow cat, and they had like $1 billion of the TVL because that was like the only game in town. And then of course, like the token went to zero. But like now Arbitrum has like the most TVL out of all the L2s. And I can definitely see a scenario like, I mean, it kind of depends, like what's Coinbase's goal for launching Base? Like, is it supposed to be like this safe playground? And like maybe something they can do is maybe they can cap like deposits up to like $1,000, $10,000, and then people can try out LPing on Uniswap, Curve, or Aave, and like maybe it's not a place for people to like make money. It's a place for people to experiment. And then once people feel comfortable with the risks, they go on mainnet, and then they play like the Ponzi games that we all know and love. So if that's the case, I think that's like pretty bullish, like because it kind of obfuscates like the UI UX problem. Because if from like a normal like normie perspective, like having to bridge fiat to Coinbase, convert it into USDC, bridge it to MetaMask, store your private keys, buy ETH, like and like like dealing with all the complications. That's a huge barrier to entry. And if Coinbase can create this base chain that's like a safe playground, I think it's like top of funnel, like pipeline, like onboarding process. And I think it's like a medium to longer term, like bullish event.
I'm looking forward to like account abstraction as well, and some of these like normie procedures getting a lot simpler with paying gas and all that stuff being hidden. But staying on the topic of centralization versus decentralization in DeFi, one of the original issues that we had was around the OFAC compliance, and I saw this recently, like this week. So Hex, which is you could argue that Hex created Uniswap. It was potentially the app that really was traded a lot because centralized exchanges were not willing to list what is kind of a scam coin. And I've said this before. And at this point, Uniswap has delisted it. So it's a turning of the tide. And this is all because this man right here, Richard Hart, who I had the privilege of debating once upon a time, apparently he has finally kind of received a legal consequence for Pulse Chain and Hex. And I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this because, this is the SEC winning, but also I'm not very positive on Richard Hart and the kind of scams that he's been perpetuating. I don't know if you guys have any feelings about this, but whose side are we on? Like, I'm very conflicted. Are we on side Hex or on side SEC?
For me, it's side SEC very clearly. I agree with you that SEC is basically, or excuse me, Hex is basically a scam coin. And I think the SEC should go after these scam projects. I do think it's like a very hard thing to enforce, right? You can have anonymous developers deploying anything from anywhere, and where we can interact with any other country without permission from any government or intermediary. So very hard to enforce in practice. But when there's something so blatant like Hex, I'm all for it. Like for the Ripple case is interesting too, because Ripple is basically a scam coin as well. I would argue it doesn't really do anything or function in any way. It just has this crazy high valuation because it's a legacy coin, I guess. And so while I'm very happy that the SEC lost in that case and that XRP is not by default a security, it's a little bittersweet because XRP is basically a scam token and in some ways operates as a security, right? Like they are just dumping this token on you and telling you that they're going to drive value to the token and then never delivering. So on this one, I'm backing the SEC, but for obviously more meaningful projects, it's a bit different.
I mean, XRP maybe is not quite as bad in the sense of, Hex was really putting, posters and sending to people's houses and telling them, put your mortgage and put your house into this. And, this is like a whole other level. I don't know if Taiki or Thiki, you guys have watched any Richard Hart videos, but I'll admit that, early in my exploration of crypto days, Richard Hart was this like larger than life guy who has all these like bombastic videos on YouTube. And, people were giving me shit for debating him, but I really wanted to just experience it firsthand and interact with him. And I was a little bit disappointed. He didn't really have answers to the hard questions that I asked him. I was a little bit deflated. It was like expecting Donald Trump to pull well, here we go. Yeah. Alleges he used 12 million funds to purchase luxury goods. Looks like more than 12 million to me. I don't know.
Yeah, he's kind of selling. Isn't Hex like a wealth as a service, like a dream as a service? Like he's basically selling the dream, right, to other Hex sacrificers or buyers. And I mean, because everything's like a spectrum, right? I mean, Hex is a scam and XRP is less of a scam, but you know, there's like a fine line there.
He was very early on. You know, we have to give him credit. He's the godfather of the scams, because he made people lock up their tokens for 10 years so they couldn't buy. And the longer they lock it up, the more they would get. And it was exponential. So like if you only lock for a month, you're getting nothing. But if you lock for 10 years, oh man, like just wait 10 years and you're going to be, you know, like exactly what you said. He's selling the dream of in 10 years, if you're just patient and you wait, you're going to dilute everybody else and be super wealthy. Tiki, have you ever looked at Hex much?
Yeah, I thought what they did with Pulse was really interesting. It's kind of like the lawful evil version of Coinbase, I guess. Kind of just policing its own ecosystem, you know, guarding the entries and exits and making sure that only he can sell to his, you know, retail people. I do think it's funny that, like, Jordy, that you like to like hunt these sort of, you know, Ponzi's. You know, you got Ohm, you got Hex, like Luna too.
The communities are the most fun part. They really start attacking you. And I haven't talked about Hex in a while, but when I did, I mean, my Twitter like notifications were it was I just had to like, I think I've blocked thousands of Hexicans, and I don't envy. I don't know if you guys follow Eric Wall, but right now he's been commenting about the situation, and there's a lot of angry Hexicans. And it's a weird spot. You know, people dig in. I don't know if you guys have taken any psychology classes in college or anything, but when people are faced with counteracting evidence, and it's kind of harsh evidence in their face, people dig in their heels and they double down. And, you know, people are really doubling down now about Hex, even though it's obviously like, you know, Pulse is just a fork of Ethereum, and they've created separate versions of every coin, but they're not backed by anything. So, and then the funny one is like, you know, I don't know if you guys watched it at all, but there was a Hex coin on Ethereum, and because it got forked, there was a Hex coin on Pulse, and people don't know which one to buy. So they both kind of started like falling down, because like, which one's real, right?
So this was during like the mania phase of this last market cycle. This was a big problem for me. So I had built this YouTube channel that got pretty popular. Like, my videos were very well liked. I basically did tutorial videos about DeFi protocols and interviewed founders. And I had the privilege of interviewing Do Kwon. I was very much not into Terra, similar to you, Jordy. I didn't call it out publicly, but in a lot of private chats or in like my Discord community, I called it out. And I found him to be like a complete jerk on the interview. I really didn't like this guy, but it was this huge pickle. Like, I decided to just not ever speak about UST or Terra and like the eventual collapse that everyone frankly saw as a possible outcome, because like, it's just, there's no benefit to it. Everyone hates you. Like, no one's happy about it. You don't gain anything. And so I think that's like ended up silencing so many people. And like, Jordy, I mean, props to you for being like one of the few people willing to actually call it out, because like, I'm embarrassed and ashamed a little bit to admit, like, I just wanted to avoid the topic. I didn't want anything to do with it because it was a lose-lose for me, and you can't win.
Exactly. If you have like a place in crypto and you're trying to do any kind of institutional thing, like if you're a VC and you want to get deals, or if, you know, even in my position, honestly, as a market maker, if you're trying to get some of these, you know, coins that maybe it's good for business, like a Worldcoin, you know, the market makers that got Worldcoin, Selene did not get Worldcoin, unfortunately. I'm sad about it. But if you were one of the 5 that did get it, I don't know like what the call options are going to be worth by the end, but just the gamma hedging, I mean, I'm sure they've made, you know, a few $1 million a piece. And, you know, talking about Worldcoin, I'm never going to get the Worldcoin deal now. That's pretty obvious. So, you know, you take a side and you stick with it. And I hope on this podcast, since you know, all of us are not trying to be like the VC route, we can kind of keep it a bit real and speak our mind.
Definitely, you definitely have to have kind of like a maybe contrarian sort of personality to take on these communities. I'm curious, Jordy, and maybe Justin too. Like, what was the meanest thing that, like, you know, a Hexagon or a Luna person has said to you?
So on, this was a good one. So Richard Hart himself, after this whole thing that played out with, to be honest, I think I destroyed him. People can at their leisure bring up and watch this video. I think the debate I had with him did not go well for him at all. But he called me a Todd bod several times during this interview. and apparently a Todd bod. Todd is like a toddler, and it looks in this video because of the camera that I have like a toddler body. So you know, the Todd bod, the Hexicans took it and ran with it and just called me Todd bod for weeks on Twitter. So you know, that was good. I have to give props to Richard on that one.
Yeah, people love to make fun of your appearance. I think Doquan once retweeted something I said and said I was poor. So I mean, but that was like, you know, he just said that to everyone, so that's not just me. But it's really just the communities, right? Like going after you on Twitter, comments. I mean, it's just brutal. Everyone hates you, especially when you're making money too. You know. Absolutely.
I want to call out Taiki as well, because actually the first time I interacted with Taiki a few years ago was during the Ohm days, and he was brave enough to kind of feature my article breaking down why Ohm was not going to work. And I remember the first pre-call we had, he was in the spot where like a lot of my viewers are into Ohm. I don't know, like, you know, I'm going to upset them. But, you know, props for you for doing the right thing and, you know, presenting both sides of the argument. What was going through your head when you were kind of making that decision? Were you worried?
I mean, I was a little worried, but then I think when we started recording, I was kind of like, you know, fuck it. Like, let's just like talk about it. Like, it's real. Like, I mean, I still have like there's like still like I have like there's faults to be put on me as well, because like I also drank like the Luna UST Kool-Aid, but like as soon as it started depegging, like I knew it was over. And I made like an apology video, which is pretty rough too, right? But you know, I guess just understanding projects for what they are and understanding like when it's going bad, I think it's like really important, and not having like tunnel vision, especially in crypto, because it's so tribal.
I'll also admit it's like a little hard to keep that conviction, right? Like Luna lasted forever. I remember first hearing about it and having doubts, and then when it became like a multi-billion-dollar project, I was like, this is surely going to blow up. And then you're just wrong for like a full year, right? And the community, like people are just dunking on you for a full year until you're silenced, and you're like, huh, like maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm the problem. Like this thing is working. Maybe they have achieved some sort of exit velocity, and like Luna is just, UST is going to be the stable coin, the currency. Maybe they did it. And then, you know, right when you think that, that's when it all crashes in my experience.
I do feel like it takes a lot out of you to go after these things when there's a large community there. And sometimes even when there's not a large community, there was one scam that some people fell for that I could have called out, and I was just a little bit tired after having gone through all the one. It was called Freeway or something. There was some token that claimed to give you yield based on FX strategies, that they had this like amazing FX engine that was making money and, you know, could give you like 20, 30% returns. And this is obviously a scam. Like this is like the stereotypical bullshit scam that they always use, which is, oh, we have this amazing trading bot and just give us money. The reality is, I mean, I had a call with a team. I started doing investigating. I pretended I was interested. Hey guys, let me find out. Yeah, maybe I'll put money in. And I asked them like, why don't you just raise like actual hedge fund capital? Like that's what people who have profitable trading strategies do. And they're like, oh no, we want to give it to the people. It was so full of shit. But, you know, I just didn't want to deal with, you know, sometimes you can get sued. Like we saw like ZachXBT is getting sued by Big Brother, which, you know, I'm quite upset about, because Zach, I've interacted with him quite a lot, and he's a very legit guy. And if you present to him evidence that he's made a mistake, he will correct it. I've seen him do it. He's not going to pretend that he's right when he's not. And if Big Brother thought that he had misappropriated and made mistakes, I think he should have dealt with it differently. So that was quite upsetting to me. I don't know if any of you guys followed the Zach thing.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because like I think MachiBigBrother like doxed him too. Like Zach's last name was on there, and like that was also like upsetting because he's trying to be like this anonymous on-chain police. But like as soon as he's doxed, I feel like it kind of gives reasons for like other like bad actors to like maybe threaten him physically and stuff. I think, you know, characters like Zach, like he deserves to be anon, and he deserves the community's backing. I haven't really like tracked like what happened in that case. I think Machi was like, oh, like I'm not serious. I just like wanted an apology or something. So like maybe he's pulling out, but yeah, I think like these rich figures, like they just like use like their wealth and money and like influence, like threaten like any naysayers.
Yeah. I agree. It's disheartening to see a dox for no reason at all, apart from just someone trying to save his reputation and in the process destroying his reputation, because Zach is like such a beloved community character that it's kind of having this Barbara Streisand effect. I don't know, Thicky, if you follow this this Zach drama, if you have any comment on this one.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. Very common in the TradFi world.
In TradFi world, how so?
Well, it kind of just like, you know, intimidating people through the legal process. It's increasingly hard to hide your identity now on chain and, like, you know, actually be anonymous. So.
And we do see that the legal system, like the trad world legal system, is so money based that whoever has the most money can just draw it out and just create enough costs that you have to give it in and settle. And I remember BitBoy tried to sue a YouTuber last year for a similar thing. He thought that he was being misappropriated. And once Kobe and some of the other community started throwing money at him and gave him a bunch of money, then BitBoy backed off because he realized actually, like, you know, his bags are not bags, and he wouldn't be able to draw out the lawsuit as much as he was hoping. But yeah, hopefully we see better actors in the future be supported. Cool. All right. Well, let's wrap up with our weekly How Degen Am I segment.
So we're changing it up a little bit, and we've decided that Jordy is now going to be the source of truth for grading this. So Thicky, Taiki, and I are going to be presenting our Degen plays of the week to Jordy and getting his thoughts.
Like I'm like the DeFi boomer, and I don't do Degen stuff that compares with you guys. Although this week I have an interesting one to show. But in general, I think you guys are way ahead of me. So let me judge your Degen-ness.
Cool. Well, I'll kick things off. I actually switched up my play because I think Taiki and I might have had the same one. So I thought of something else. So I'm not sure if you guys saw this. Kind of blew up on Twitter, ETHXY. And this is like another one of those land plot sales on crypto. Total game, right? But this was a hackathon project, I think, at ETHCC that was a finalist or something like that. And you could effectively like buy this plot of land. And when you buy a plot of land, you got 100 of these ETHXY tokens that you could then redeem for the proceeds of like future sales. And the only way to sell your plot of land was if someone buys it from you at 2x the price. So I bought a couple of these things at 0.16 ETH or something like that. And one of my plots was purchased, so I made a little on that. And the other one is just still sitting there waiting to get bought. I'll keep you guys posted on if it does or not. But yeah, that's where I'm at. So my capital is kind of just locked in this thing, but fortunately it's not much at all.
So people just put whatever flags and whatever memes they feel like, and
so I think it's tied to your ENS record. So if you set your ENS to your address, it'll show the image associated with it. And I'm not going to zoom in because there's some inappropriate images here, but yeah, that's basically how it works.
Is that the default one? The one that's like that face? There's like
no, the default one is actually the color, the rainbows in the background. So that face person is just an ETHXY whale. And if you buy squares together, you get a giant square. So you see like there's the base unit. And then, but if you buy multiple ones that are close to each other, you get the whole area and get a larger image. I sound too excited about this. I'm really
What's the end goal here? Like metaverse?
I mean, the end goal is basically the same end goal of Bald, right? Like this is just a meme coin and you hope someone buys at a higher price than you. I mean, the ETHXY, the ERC20 token that you get from buying a plot is redeemable for treasury value. So the devs actually don't get any money from this. Like all of the ETH purchased for plots goes to the treasury. But like my redemptions are like 0.02 ETH per plot. Like it's really not much. So it's, yeah, definitely this thing is faded fast.
There's a bit of metagaming here because like if someone, I'm guessing it turns into a bigger one when you have a 2x2 and then a 3x3. So if you can like just try to snag a corner before they can get the rest, and then you just flip it to them for higher, like it's a fun little game you could try to play.
It gets expensive. So this middle plot here, or 0.0, I guess it's the top left, sells for 40.9 ETH. And then if you look at if we can pull up the center plot, it's something like 100 ETH it's selling for now. So it's expensive. I mean, each square doubles each time it's been purchased. So a little out of my budget.
It's a nice flex game. Like if this picks up, then it's the same as driver license plates where people want to have like these, like in the Middle East, they want to have like a single digit one or double digit one if you're poor. You mentioned that you only spent like 0.2 ETH or something, and that kind of plays into it.
That's what I'm willing to say publicly, Jordy.
If you had bought the 0.0 for 40 ETH, kind of waiting for the flip one day, then that would be a lot higher. This is the same as buying like a super cheap kind of NFT. This is like a 3 out of 10. I'm sorry. It's
that's tough.
But in your defense, Justin, you actually you said you had Taiki's one, and he took it from you. So that could be your defense for not being Degen enough on this.
Yeah, I'll try to come back stronger next week.
Yeah, and my Degen play, like, it was first highlighted by Justin, and like he was looking into like the superconductors, right? Like, I'm sure you've heard of like this hype on Twitter, but is everyone here aware of like what superconductors are? If not, I can kind of explain.
It's like
we're all experts
debate,
by now,
right? Everyone's debating if it's true or not, if they've actually found a room temperature one.
Yeah, basically, like modern materials like don't allow like electrons to flow freely, so it like traps like the material gets super hot. It like wastes a bunch of heat. So if this like room temperature superconductor is actually real, and this is like a hotly debated topic, and there's a bunch of scientists all across the world trying to replicate like whether this material is real or not. But I guess like the Degen play here is that there's a bunch of microcap stocks that kind of play into superconductors. There's one called AMSC, which is literally called like American Superconductor Corporation, which is kind of like similar to like how internet computer, like ICP is like, oh my God, like it's computer of the internet, right? And there's like hype around that. Like AMSC is like down 50% in the last 48 hours. But I bought this other small cap, like micro cap with like a $400 million market cap called RGTI, like Rigetti Computing, which is like a quantum computing play. And literally like I was like bridging fiat to like Fidelity to try to buy this thing. Like kind of FOMOing it, and then like when I try to click buy, Fidelity made me go through this process of like, are you sure? Like this is a penny stock, it's like very risky, and then it gave me like a warning of like your purchase can cause slippage, and like you're gonna get like bad price execution. And then like I think like every group chat is like trying to look into this, and like I just like aped RGTI, which is like a $400 million market cap stock. It was formerly a SPAC, so it like launched at $10, it nuked to $1, and now it's trading at $3. And no, I never paid attention in physics class, but I'm like, okay, like it kind of reminds me of like in like Q1 of 2020, like no one really was like paying attention to COVID unless you're on Twitter. And then like this whole superconductor thing, it's like only like a thing like on Twitter. Like if you talk to like regular people, like they don't really know what they are. So I mean, of course, if the science is like fake, like every stock is gonna go down like 50% because they're all kind of like vaporware. But if it's real, then maybe like the risk is asymmetric. So I aped RGTI. So how do you rate this, Jordy?
So how much slippage did you end up paying? This is an important question.
I think I paid like 2% slippage.
Paid 2% slippage
on a stock though, right? Like that's kind of crazy.
So can I just say, to redeem myself for the last one, that I actually went above and beyond Taiki, and I bought call options that are like expire in 2 weeks. So I'm just putting it out there. I would have probably surpassed him a little on the scoring.
You would have 0-day call options on the micro cap. This is a 4. I'm a little bit disappointed. I think the call options would have been like a 6 or 7. Would have been quite a bit higher. 2% slippage helps. It helps. I'll give you a solid 5 because of the slippage. Okay. I don't know how much size you showed to get that 2% slippage, but it sounds like it was a reasonable purchase.
This guy was saying buy out of the money calls and obscure shitcodes, and then use ChatGPT to write like research to dump on archive, and then shill the companies.
That works.
Well, thank you. I don't know what you have for us, but the field is open. If you can get past the 5.
We set the bar low.
Fine. I don't think I did anything super Degen. I think yesterday, like after the curve situation, I genuinely thought King's tweet was like very market moving. So I think at like 1843, I bought like 15K worth of like 1 day or just 0-day options on BTC, expiring at 1850. And then like literally 10 minutes later, like the BNB news came out, and it was a bit unfortunate. If I bought the options maybe 20 minutes later, I think they would have ended in the money. But yeah, 15K I was trading yesterday.
And where do you buy these 0-day options?
I buy them on Bybit.
Okay, this is just like a normal weekly expiry and happen to be like the next day, or do they actually have like 0-day options?
They actually have 1 and 2 day rolling options now, mainly for degens. Like,
wow. Okay. But it's on a major. You know, you just bought it on Bitcoin. I mean, this is I'm a little bit disappointed, guys. You know, this is like
God, I'm so sorry. We're so sorry.
I think Justin's call options actually went out, even though he didn't present them. I have to give the prize there. And I'll show you what real degen looks like. So you know, let's put a chart up there. This is the Korean market after Curve stopped deposits. So when Curve was crashing, the rest of the world was in disarray. Curve was going to zero. Right around this point in the middle of the curve, in the middle of the chart, sorry, the Koreans decided the doors are locked. Nobody can get in, nobody can get out. And they gave Curve a legitimate, what is that, like a 40% pump and just ripped the face out of anybody within that locked ecosystem. This is what real degeneracy looks like. You have a coin that you know is losing value rapidly, but because there's nobody who can deposit to dump on you, you start playing these like games of you know, trying to make a pump. The Korean Curve play is a 10 out of 10, no questions. I did not participate personally, but this is the kind of stuff that, you know, I hope you guys bring to us next week.
Were you market making it?
I cannot confirm or deny any market making activities. But no, and thankfully I was not, because any kind of signal from the rest of the world, you know, you try to use a Binance price to price this, you would just get destroyed, because they don't care what Binance is doing when nobody can do a loop and deposit and then like sell it and sell out. Nobody could do that.
Thank God for Chainlink. Well, with that, I think a successful episode 2 is in the books. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and then let us know what you want to see in the comments below. If there's a special guest you want to bring on, we'll bring them on. So with that, thanks everyone so much for watching, and we will see you all next week in episode 3. Bye, everyone.